Hey, welcome. My name is Cecilia Howard, and I want to thank you for stopping by my YouTube channel, Stress Less with Mindfulness. I've been a practitioner of mindfulness for many, many years. I've been teaching meditation classes. I have also found mindfulness to be an incredibly important part of my life and what I do on a daily basis. And years ago, when I first started this YouTube channel, my intention, as in all things, was to have a number of different videos that would be posted that would be helpful in regard to not just mindfulness, but meditation, practical applications of it in our daily life. And I had also hoped to do some live webcasts and web hosting and all that great stuff. But as in all things, life has a way of taking us in different directions. And I turned away from the YouTube channel and was putting efforts into some other areas of my life. And now that social distancing and COVID-19 has become a routine part of not only our lives here in the United States, but all around the world, I thought that this was the perfect time to revisit my YouTube channel and really put into practice something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I don't want this to look like every meditation or mindfulness channel or app that you tune into. App meaning anything that you do on your smartphones. I want this to be natural. I want it to be original, hopefully, or at least as original as it can be because it's coming from me, so original for me. I want it to be funny. I want it to be a chance for us to connect. I want to be able to really share the human aspects of not only my life, but all of our lives. And that none of us are perfect, and that we all do things that we wish we could take back or that we regret having done them, but that we don't let that stop us. And right now, where so many of us, thousands upon millions upon billions of us, are spending a lot of time in our homes, there is a great deal of opportunity for us to explore what exactly that is like. Uh, I know that there are many helpful and useful resources out there to help people with COVID-19 and where they can go for all aspects of their health care, their mental health care. But what I wanted to do here with this particular recording today was just talk about my experience of it and some of the things that I'm doing to help. And all of my subsequent or ongoing videos that I'll post here and live opportunities to practice some meditation together, all of the things that I'm doing here are coming from my own heart. I am taking all of the lessons that I have learned, all of the teachings that I have partaken of, all of the training that I've had, all of the people that I've met, and just turn that into an opportunity to pass that along to you. I'm not espousing any particular religion. I am not, I am doing this in a very secular way. And if anything, I could say that bringing mindfulness into my life has enabled me to become a much more spiritually connected person. I am much more grounded in my body, in my mind. And I find that it's not about putting rose-colored glasses on. It's not about pretending everything's okay. It's not about ignoring what's happening in the world around us. But for me, It's about limiting that exposure and that access and that information so that I'm not on overwhelm. I know that it's so funny because there's days when my husband, who's just started working out of the home this week, he can definitely tell the days when I'm watching more news, because when he's done at the end of the day, which is around 6:30 or so, and we have a chance to chat after we've had dinner, there's probably more anger in my conversation about what's happening, about who isn't handling things in a more effective capacity. Things like, why aren't more testing kits available? Why aren't we aware of what's happening? Why are more people not being allowed to be tested? Uh, and on, from PPEs and face mask availability, and it goes on and on. And I mean, you all know, you watch it, you hear it, you listen to it, and I don't need to go through a list of it, because none of us want to raise our blood pressure at this point right now. So I know it sounds really simplistic to say limit yourself to the information that you're getting, but I have to say there's a lot of people out there that are staying glued to their television sets, or they're staying on one particular news channel and not allowing there to be information to come from other news stations. And they're listening to particular people that may only be saying the things that perhaps they need to hear in a time like this. So I just want to say to everybody that we shouldn't dig ourselves a hole and bury ourselves under a rock. We should be aware of what's happening around us. We should be informed. We do need to know what's taking place. But it doesn't mean we have to do this in a consistent 24/7, 365 capacity. And maybe you're not doing it 24 hours a day, but how often are you grabbing this and checking your news feed? How often are you turning on the television? More importantly, how often are you turning off the television? The news, it's going to be there no matter what. Those news programs, those 24-hour news channels that are there, they're there for a purpose. And they'll be there no matter what. So what I do, and what I suggest to people who ask me what are some of the things that have helped me or are helping me get through this right now, what I often tell people is really limit your access to news and information. Set a time. Set a particular time that you'll listen to things. Maybe it's, 8 o'clock in the morning. Maybe it's the noon reports. Maybe it's listening at 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock, whatever. Pick a particular time of the day, maybe a couple times a day, but limit yourself and your exposure to the information that you're hearing. The benefits of doing that are that you're allowing yourself to feel and do and experience other things than just feeding an already overly anxious mind, or the stress that we're already inducing in our bodies just from knowing that we're confined to our homes. So limiting that exposure is critical. And again, it's not about putting on rose-colored glasses and saying, oh, I'm going to pretend nothing's going on. It's very much the opposite of that. We're very aware of what's happening. I'm very aware of what's happening in the world around me. I do know that I do have tendencies towards a more anxious nature. So for me, and for others who experience anxiety in the same way that many of us who experience anxiety do, we really have to limit our exposure to information that can add to our anxiety level. So although it sounds like something that's so simplistic, I just want you to truly take advantage of that piece of advice. One of the things that I learned many years ago during the Gulf War, when the Gulf War occurred here in this country, it was the very first time that we had access to imagery and information about a war that was taking place in an ongoing capacity. And we were seeing those Scud missiles. Some of us who are old enough remember that term, Scud missile, and we were watching all of these hits and target areas and things that were taking place in a country far, far away, but we were glued to our TVs. And there was a form of PTSD that came about from watching all of that televised news. And people were feeling this angst and this inability to really focus and concentrate on their lives and do things in the same way that they used to without feeling this sort of heaviness. And it was at this particular time that many psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors discovered that there was this capacity for us to experience this form of trauma just by watching these images as they were televised to us. In many cases, not so much. Well, some of them were live, but in just this the barrage of information. It was coming at us 24/7, again, 365. It was on many channels. So over the years since the Gulf War and since technology has exploded and the internet has opened up whole new opportunities for us, and our phones are, on us all the time, and we have information just accessible everywhere we turn. It's a wonderful thing, but it's also the type of thing that we have to really closely monitor, and we need to just limit that exposure to that. So again, sounds simplistic, sounds silly, but just try for, if you can't do it for a week, just try for one day to say, okay, today, just going to listen to the news at 9 a.m. I'm just going to listen to the news at 6. I'm only going to listen to the 12 o'clock report. I'm only going to listen to one particular channel for an hour today, and then maybe tomorrow I'll listen to a different channel for an hour. So just asking you to change up the routine a little bit and then just see how you feel with doing that. So that's one of the most important things that has helped me tremendously with not only what I'm experiencing right now with COVID-19 and with the coronavirus and what's happening right now, but just over the years in terms of being able to really put into perspective that I need to control my access to information so that my anxiety level doesn't rise. And if it does rise, that's when I need to ask myself, what am I doing? Which leads me into a couple other things that I wanted to just very quickly talk about. And just so you know, if you see my eyes glance over to the side, I have a clock here, and I just want to try to keep my talk on point and hopefully make these about 15-20 minutes in length. So it leads me to wanting to talk about what are some other things that we can do that I've been doing to help. So when we're faced with a situation that we have very little control over, it's extremely frustrating, as we all know, to feel as though we are being dictated to what we need to do. And many of us who are used to doing things our own way, all of us are used to doing things our own way. We don't like to be told how to do things. It's frustrating when we hear that there is some manner of control that's being placed over what we're doing or what we can't do. So it's important in situations like this for us to, again, not put on the rose-colored glasses and pretend that things are, oh, it's wonderful and I love being at home, when you're probably going nuts and the kids might be driving you crazy, and things may be very difficult, and probably are very difficult for many. In fact, those of us out there who have lost our jobs, who have lost our income, who are have been exposed to COVID, who are experiencing COVID-19, who have lost loved ones. I mean, and on and on and on. There is just a tremendous amount of pain and suffering out there. And we are feeling this collectively, not only individually, but collectively, all across the country, all over the world. So there's a real opportunity for us here to, again, feel into whatever we're feeling and allow those emotions to not overwhelm, but to be aware of them. So many of us are unaware of the tension and the tightness and the body sensations that we experience when we are feeling a great deal of stress and anxiety. Matter of fact, our bodies are often the first place, the first response in the body to stress and anxiety is to react, or to feel it from a body sensation standpoint. And then what happens is the body then sends a message to the brain, and the brain translates it. And depending what our pattern in life is, the way we handle stress and anxiety, our body reacts. We react. So in times like this, when things are so different, so vastly different. I mean, we hear this term all the time. You know, we know that we're experiencing something that we've never experienced before on such a large scale global capacity. So what we want to be able to do is recognize that it's times like this that we need to hold our emotions and our feelings tenderly. And when I say hold, I don't mean hold back. Holding back, as a matter of fact, makes things often come at us even stronger. So it's not about pushing away or holding back, but it's about holding tenderly. It's about allowing us to hold tenderly what it is that we're feeling, and to allow this to not overwhelm. And when we are holding these feelings tenderly, when we are allowing ourselves to feel those emotions and not block them from us, there's a sort of opening that occurs, a sort of tenderness that sort of can in turn flow out of us to others around us. And whether or not we're physically with others, we can send that feeling of empathy to all those others around us who are experiencing these without getting overwhelmed. And certainly if we are feeling that sense of overwhelm, if we are finding that we're crying often, that we're not able to do things the way we used to, that we are experiencing some type of trauma or PTSD, or it is a trigger for things that have happened in our lives before, this is a time to really turn towards those all of those therapeutic opportunities with professionals who can really help us to understand more about what's happening. And with COVID-19, you'll find that access to therapy and doctors and people who can help us is being done more and more online with telemed and other means of communicating. So there's a need to really, again, hold those emotions tenderly, recognize what you're feeling in your body, notice those feelings of tension. How many times are we so tense in our bodies that we don't even realize we're gripping our hands tightly, or curling our toes, or holding our stomach in knots, or the chest feels so tight? So it's at times like those when we want to just bring our attention into the body and notice how the body is responding to stress. And I would be willing to bet for many of us, you're going to notice a lot of that when you're watching the news, when you're watching information that's coming at you from the TV, and all of a sudden you'll notice, you know what, I'm sitting here like wrapped up like a ball. So recognize your body's response to stress. Just notice it a little bit more. And because of time, and I don't want these to sort of ramble on into, because I can ramble on, into a lot of different areas that I don't want to go for this particular first talk. I wanted to leave you with a third thing that has helped me when it comes to mindfulness. And that is really making an effort to be with yourself, with the people who are with you, in a truly mindful capacity. So, what does that mean? It means for those of us who have loved ones around us, it's about listening, really listening when they're talking to us, trying not to have 30 other conversations going on in our mind, or be thinking about, you know what, I'd rather be watching TV right now than sitting here helping my kid with his, homework on a beautiful day. Maybe I'd rather be out taking a walk, or the thoughts come so fast, or maybe I should be prepping dinner, or maybe I should be doing laundry, or maybe I want to take a nap, or and before you know it, there's so many things are exploding in your mind that while this young one or young ones or whoever are speaking to you, we've sort of lost all ability to connect fully. So making an effort to really be there. And it doesn't mean that you can do this every minute of every day. Remember, we're only human. We all make mistakes. We all forget. We all can do something in one moment, and then in the next moment, we completely forget. So it doesn't mean that you have to strive for perfection. As a matter of fact, I can't stand that term. There is no such thing in my mind as perfection in our lives. That striving for perfection is something that we shouldn't be trying to do. We do make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes with what I do with you here right now. I'm going to lose my train of thought. I'm going to forget what I'm talking about. The important thing is that I have learned over the years to not be afraid to show who I really am to others out there. And that's what I'd like us all to be able to do more with one another. Admit our frailties, or admit our problems, admit that we're more alike than we are different. And that's where so much of the conflict comes, not only with ourselves, but with family members, because all of us do not react to stress the same way. Children certainly don't. Young ones, young adolescents, teenagers, adults. And even recognizing that and knowing that doesn't always mean that there's this harmony that can exist in our families for very long periods of time. And so what I'm trying to just say is, take moments throughout the day, and throughout the days and the weeks and the months ahead, not just all the time we're in COVID-19, but on an ongoing basis, to really be there with those loved ones, to really pay attention, to try to cut down the mind chatter, and to allow yourself, even if it's just for a moment, to really listen. And if a loved one is hugging you at that moment, be in that hug. Be in that hug in that moment, and feel into that. And remember that change is inevitable. It's something that we've heard said to us time and time again. change is absolutely inevitable. When I look at photos of myself from when I was a baby to a toddler to an adolescent to a teenager to a young adult and on and on and on. Oops, I touched my face. um, it's easy to see that the change, it's really easy to recognize it because there's not only that physical change, but there's that emotional, mental change that we go through. So we know that in our own lives. We know that our bodies change. We know that our weight goes up and down. We know that wrinkles, start to appear on our face as we age. We know that our bodies aren't able to do the same things that we could do when we were younger. We see change around us, not only in seasonal changes, but in just the world around us from a cultural standpoint. Something that was popular 20 years ago, not so popular 10 years after that, and really not even, people aren't even aware of it 20 years later. So some things are cyclical, that is true, and some things have a way of coming back, but they often come back in a newer, refreshed way. So change is inevitable. We can't stop the world to fit and accommodate the way we want things to be. We can't. And those of us who want things to be the way they used to be, and not just the way they used to be, and I'm not just saying this for right here and now, but this is a life lesson that I had a really hard time learning, and I still struggle with it. But that constant chasing of wanting things to be the same, of regretting that things can't be the same, and not understanding that change is a part of life. It's a part of growth. It's a part of understanding that it's needed in order for us to grow, not only individually, but as a community, as a society, as a world globally. So what does all of this mean to us right here and right now in this vacuum that we're kind of living in? It means that this is a chance to embrace, maybe not embrace, I don't want to give the impression that we're going to love what's happening with us right now, but a chance for us to just simply recognize that change occurs, that the more we try to hold on to things wanting to be the same, the more painful we make things. So it's not about holding on tightly. And I wanted to just demonstrate this to you. So pretend that this pencil is whatever stress you're experiencing in your life right now. Could be anything. It could be absolutely anything, from COVID-19 to social distancing to teaching the kids to having lost your job, and on and on and on. Whatever it is, this is the stress. So pretending this is whatever stress it is. This sort of death-like grip, this red knuckling, they call it, and I'm not sure if you can see that, but or white knuckling rather, I'm sorry, white knuckling, where your knuckles sort of turn white, but your fingers sort of get this reddish sort of glow to them, but the knuckles turn white. This is that sort of death grip that we often have to the stress and the difficulties that we're dealing with in life. So what I'm suggesting that people learn to do is more of this. Opening up into what's happening. Now, I haven't changed anything. I haven't taken away the stressful situation. It's still there, okay? But what's happened is my relationship, my reaction, my response to what's happening has opened up more. So that rather than fighting against it or feeling this sort of, oh, I wish it would go away, I can't stand this, oh, why doesn't it stop? I need to breathe. I need to take a breath. I need to recognize that I can be with this stress and not have to have this death-like grip all the time. and not have to feel this constancy of holding on to it. I can have it with me and proceed and go on with my life. And the way we do that is with all those little things that we can do in a mindful capacity. Being aware of what's happening as it's happening, recognizing that we can't change our circumstances right now. Things are the way they are, and railing against them isn't going to change anything. In fact, it's going to make more of this happen. This, it doesn't matter which hand. Or it could even be, some of us could feel like this. Oh. So, sounds simplistic, sounds pretty easy peasy. Again, not suggesting that you put the rose-colored glasses on, not suggesting that we not feel what's happening. So limit exposure, feel into what's happening, try to limit, try to set some guidelines for yourself to follow, for the family to follow. Try to notice those body reactions to stress so that you can perhaps not do some of those things that create that tension and stress in the body. Like maybe you don't need that 10th cup of coffee. Caffeine has a way of, making us feel that tension and anxiety even more so. Chocolate has a lot of caffeine. That'll do it. High-fat foods, same thing, has a very stress-like reaction in our bodies. So it's really noticing those things that add that tension, doing what we can to be with the things that are happening around us, and turning to professionals when we feel as though that overwhelm and that sense of overwhelm is getting too strong. So I want to end on that note right now. If any of you would like to hear me talk about any particular topics, I am welcome to get emails. My email is cbhoward@mac, like a Mac computer, mac.com. My home webpage is Mindful Presence Reiki, reiki.com. And my YouTube channel here is Stress Less with Mindfulness. The last thing I just wanted to leave everybody with is there are so many amazing apps and programs out there and YouTube channels to learn and practice meditation. Meditation is one of the ways we formally practice mindfulness. There's the formal practice and informal practices, and I'll talk more about that in upcoming talks that we'll do. But one of the things that I wanted to tell everybody about, if you don't already have it, please download Insight Timer to your smartphone. INSIGHT Timer, and I can see I'm already going over my time today, and I do apologize. I want to try to keep these to 15 to 20 minutes. InsightTimer.com has access to thousands of meditations. Do not let it overwhelm you. I would suggest that if you download the app, there's a free version, which I've heard is amazing. There's a low-cost version, and then there's a higher pay version, which is for people who want to take some of the courses and classes that they offer, which are phenomenal. But I wanted to just say that when you go to Insight Timer, if you've never practiced meditation before, they're broken down by category. So after you sign up for it, go to the mindfulness category and stick with just practicing mindfulness meditation. The reason why I suggest that you start kind of small is because, number one, if you've never done it, you can feel overwhelmed. And there are so many different styles and methodologies to practicing meditation and all different schools of thought. And I'll talk about that in another talk. I don't want to get lost in that now. Limit it to mindfulness. See how it goes. Practice 5, 10, 15 minutes a day. If the meditation says it's 20 minutes, you only have to do 5. It doesn't matter how long you meditate. But the beauty of Insight Timer is you can see around the world how many other people you're practicing with at the same time. So there is a connectivity to doing this. And the other thing that I like about Insight Timer personally is the fact that they're not charging exorbitant amounts of money for people to use it. And that is really critical. absolutely critical. There's a lot of wonderful meditation apps out there, but I do not like the fact that they are charging just ridiculous amounts of money for people to practice this. So there are plenty of places you can go to that cost nothing. Do the free version. And again, thank you so much for joining me here today. I just want to send out lots of love, lots of happiness, lots of feelings of ease and wellness to everyone out there. And I will see you again another day. Take care. Bye-bye.